I'm standing in the marble lobby of the Sinclair Tower, holding a black American Express Centurion card that doesn't belong to me. And the security footage that could destroy my life is playing on repeat in the penthouse above. My hands are shaking so badly I can barely grip the elevator call button. In exactly 4 minutes, Marcus Sinclair, one of the 5 wealthiest men in America, will either press charges that will send me to prison, or he'll do something I still can't fully comprehend. The card in my hand weighs 22 grams. I know because I looked it up after I found it. Right now, it feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds. The elevator dings. The doors open. I step inside, and as they close behind me, I realize that everything that brought me to this moment started 6 months ago, in the most humiliating night of my entire life. 6 months earlier, I was a different person. Or maybe I was the same person, just one who hadn't been tested yet. I was working 3 jobs to keep my mother alive. That's not dramatic language. That's literal fact. Stage 4. Pancreatic cancer doesn't care about your budget or your pride or how many hours you can physically work in a day. The experimental treatment at Sloan Kettering cost $47,000 per month, not covered by insurance. I had a day job as a junior accountant at Morrison & Associates, pulling in $52,000 a year before taxes. Nights, I bartended at Oriole, a high-end restaurant in Midtown. Weekends, I did freelance bookkeeping for small businesses. I slept 4 hours a night. I lived on dollar pizza and black coffee. My apartment in Astoria had mold in the bathroom that I couldn't afford to fix. But I was making the payments, barely. Each month I scraped together enough to keep my mother in treatment, to keep hope alive. Then came June 14th. The night everything shattered. I was working the bar at Oriole when my phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Patterson. Call me immediately. I knew what that meant. You don't get call me immediately texts with good news. I stepped into the kitchen, hands already cold, and dialed. The treatment isn't working, Dr. Patterson said, her voice professionally gentle. The tumors are growing. We need to try the immunotherapy protocol. How much? I asked. $89,000 for the first round. 3 rounds minimum for any chance of efficacy. I did the math instantly. $267,000. I had abueltos and $134 in my checking account. How long do we have? My voice sounded strange, distant. Without treatment, 3 months, maybe 4. I thanked her, hung up. Stood in that industrial kitchen surrounded by $200 entrees, being plated for people who would spend more on dinner than I made in a week, and something inside me just fractured. I walked back to the bar in a daze. The restaurant was packed, a private event, some corporate celebration, men in $5,000 suits, women in Cartier jewelry. I poured drinks mechanically, smiled automatically, collected tips that wouldn't even cover a single day of the treatment my mother needed. Then I saw it. Sitting on the bar top, right where seat 7 had been. A black card, not just black, that particular shade of black that only comes in one form. The American Express Centurion card. The card with no spending limit. The card that costs $10,000 just to have the privilege of carrying. I looked around. Seat 7 was empty. The entire corporate group had moved to a private dining room upstairs. Someone had left it behind. I should have turned it in immediately. Should have called security, had them track down the owner. That's what the person I was before that phone call would have done. But I didn't. I picked it up. Felt the weight of it. Titanium and gold cool against my palm. I turned it over. The name embossed on it. Marcus J. Sinclair. I knew that name. Everyone in New York knew that name. Marcus Sinclair, 41, founder and CEO of Sinclair Capital Management. Net worth estimated at $8.2 billion. The man had made his fortune in hedge funds, then expanded into real estate, tech startups, private equity. Forbes called him the Midas touch of Manhattan. He owned half of the building I was standing in. I looked at that card, and a terrible thought entered my mind. One charge. Just one. Enough to cover one round of treatment. He would never even notice. People like Marcus Sinclair spent more than that on a weekend in St. Barth's. The card probably had fraud protection. The charge would get flagged, investigated, reversed. He'd get his money back from American Express. No real harm done. I could save my mother's life. I slipped the card into my pocket. I didn't use it that night. I went home, card burning in my pocket like stolen fire. I sat in my kitchen until dawn, staring at it, having a moral crisis with myself. The person I'd been raised to be was screaming that this was wrong. Theft, fraud, criminal. My mother had raised me to have integrity, to work for what I earned, to never take what wasn't mine. But that same mother was dying because I couldn't earn fast enough. At 6:47 a.m., I made my decision. I would use it once, just once. I would save my mother. Then I would find a way to pay Marcus Sinclair back. I'd work for 10 years if I had to. 20. I'd pay back every penny with interest. I went to the hospital at 8 a.m. and gave Dr. Patterson's office the card number for the first treatment. $89,000. The charge went through instantly. No flags, no questions. The treatment was scheduled for that Friday. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, one step away from falling into an abyss. That afternoon, I went to work at Morrison & Associates in a fog. I was running on no sleep, swimming in guilt and terror and desperate hope. I couldn't focus on the spreadsheets in front of me. Every time my phone buzzed, I nearly jumped out of my skin, convinced it was the police. Then at 2:17 p.m., my supervisor, Karen, called me into her office. "We need to talk about your performance," she said, her face professionally blank. "You've missed 3 deadlines in the last month. Your error rate is up. We're concerned." I tried to explain my mother's illness, the stress. I was dealing with a family emergency. I promised to do better. Karen's expression didn't change. "We're going to have to let you go. We'll give you 2 weeks severance. I'm sorry." Just like that, I lost 1/3 of my income. I walked out of that office feeling like the universe was actively trying to destroy me. I'd committed fraud to save my mother's life, and in return, I'd lost my job. Some kind of karmic justice, maybe. But I couldn't think about that. I had to keep moving. I picked up an extra bartending shift that night. Then another. I stopped sleeping almost entirely. I lived on adrenaline and desperation. The treatment happened on Friday. I sat with my mother for 6 hours while the drugs dripped into her veins. She held my hand and told me she loved me and that I was a good daughter. I smiled and told her everything was going to be okay, and I felt like the world's biggest fraud in every possible sense. 2 weeks later, my phone rang at 11:30 p.m. I was cleaning up the bar after close, exhausted, my feet screaming. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Is this Elena Martinez?" A man's voice, deep, controlled, cold. "Yes. My name is Marcus Sinclair. I believe you have something that belongs to me." My heart stopped, actually stopped. For a full 3 seconds, I couldn't breathe. I don't... My credit card. You took it from Oriole on June 14th. You charged $89,000 to it on June 15th. Did you think I wouldn't notice? "I can explain." "I don't want an explanation over the phone. I want to see you in person. Tomorrow, 2:06 p.m., my office at the Sinclair Tower. If you don't show up, I'm filing charges. If you do show up, maybe, we can resolve this without destroying your life. Your choice." He hung up. I stood there holding the phone, the bar lights too bright, the world spinning. He knew. He'd known for 2 weeks. He'd been watching, waiting, letting me think I'd gotten away with it. I barely slept that night. I considered running. considered confessing everything to the police before he could, considered a dozen different escape routes, each one more desperate than the last. But in the end, at 1:45 p.m. the next day, I walked into the Sinclair Tower. The lobby was all white marble and modern art that probably cost more than my mother's entire medical bills. I gave my name to security. They called upstairs. One of them escorted me to a private elevator that required a key card to operate. We rode up to the 47th floor in silence. The elevator opened directly into a penthouse office that occupied the entire floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. Furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. And sitting behind a desk that was probably worth more than a car, wearing a charcoal suit that fit him like it had been painted on, was Marcus Sinclair. He was taller than I expected, maybe 6'2", dark hair graying at the temples, sharp features, the kind of face that looked like it had been designed by someone who understood geometry. But it was his eyes that caught me, pale gray like winter ice and absolutely merciless. "Sit," he said. I sat. He picked up a folder from his desk and slid it across to me. "Go ahead. Open it." My hands were shaking as I opened it. Inside were printouts, security footage from Oriole showing me picking up the card, my employment records, my mother's medical files, bank statements showing my account balance, everything. He'd investigated me completely. "You stole from me," he said, his voice perfectly even. "You committed fraud. Do you understand that I could have you arrested right now?" "Yes." My voice was barely a whisper. "Look at me." I looked up. Those gray eyes pinned me like a butterfly to a board. "Tell me why." And so I did. I told him everything. My mother's diagnosis, the experimental treatment, the 3 jobs, the impossible math. The phone call from Dr. Patterson. The moment of desperate insanity when I saw his card and thought I could save her life. I didn't cry, I didn't beg. I just told him the truth because there was nothing else left to do. When I finished, he was silent for a long moment. Then he said something I didn't expect. "How much do you still need?" I blinked. "What?" "For the full treatment. 3 rounds of immunotherapy. How much more do you need?" $178,000, but I'm going to pay you back. All of it. I'll work forever if I have to, but He held up a hand, stopping me. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to cover the full cost of your mother's treatment. All of it. You're not going to pay me back." I stared at him, unable to process what I was hearing. "In exchange," he continued, "you're going to work for me." "Work for you?" I repeated stupidly. "I need someone I can trust with financial information, someone with accounting skills, someone who understands the value of money because they've never had it." He leaned back in his chair. "You're going to be my personal assistant. You'll manage my expenses, organize my schedule, handle sensitive financial documents. You'll be on call 24/7. You'll live in the guest suite of my penthouse apartment." "I don't understand. Why would you—" "Because I'm testing a theory," he said. "I want to see if someone who was desperate enough to steal from me is capable of being trusted with everything I have. Consider it a moral experiment. Succeed, and you save your mother and gain a career that will set you up for life. Fail, and I prosecute you for fraud. Those are your options." He slid a contract across the desk. "This is a 3-year employment agreement. Salary of $250,000 per year. Full benefits. All of your mother's medical expenses covered. In exchange, you belong to me for 3 years. You do what I say. When I say it, no questions asked. Within legal and ethical bounds, obviously. You sign a comprehensive NDA. You have no life outside this job. After 3 years, if you've performed satisfactorily, you leave with references that will open any door in Manhattan and a bonus of $500,000. I looked at the contract, my mind reeling. This was insane. It was a gilded cage, it was also my mother's life. "Why?" I asked. "Why would you do this?" Something shifted in his expression. Not warmth exactly, but something human beneath the ice. "Because 10 years ago, I was given a second chance when I didn't deserve one. I'm curious to see if you're capable of earning yours. So what's it going to be, Elena? Prison or penthouse?" I picked up the pen. I signed. Moving into Marcus Sinclair's world was like stepping onto a different planet. The guest suite in his penthouse was larger than my entire Astoria apartment. It had a bathroom with heated marble floors and a shower that had 7 different settings. The closet was stocked with designer clothes in exactly my size. He'd had someone research my measurements. There was a small kitchen, a living area with furniture that looked like it belonged in Architectural Digest, and windows overlooking Central Park. My first week was disorienting. Marcus ran his life with military precision. He woke at 5 a.m., worked out for an hour, had exactly 3 meetings before lunch. His schedule was organized in 15-minute blocks. He ate the same breakfast every day: egg whites, wheat toast, black coffee. He owned 17 identical charcoal suits. Everything in his life was controlled, measured, optimized. My job was to manage the chaos around that order, coordinate with his staff, organize his files, handle correspondence, screen phone calls. It was overwhelming and exhausting and utterly surreal. But the strangest part was Marcus himself. He wasn't what I expected. He was cold, yes, demanding, perfectionist. He would return documents to me with corrections in red ink if I made a single formatting error. He expected me to anticipate his needs before he voiced them. He was the hardest boss I'd ever had, but he wasn't cruel. When I made mistakes, and I made a lot of them in those first weeks, he corrected me without belittling me. When I worked 16-hour days, he noticed and told me to take breaks. When I mentioned missing my mother, he arranged for a car service to take me to the hospital every evening. And he kept his word about her treatment. Every penny was covered. Dr. Patterson called me after the second round of immunotherapy to tell me the tumors were shrinking. My mother was responding to treatment. She might actually survive. I started to wonder if Marcus Sinclair was less of a monster and more of a mystery. 2 months into the job, I discovered why Marcus lived the way he did. I was organizing his home office when I found a photograph tucked inside a book. A younger Marcus, maybe 25, with his arm around a beautiful woman with dark hair and a radiant smile. On the back, someone had written, "Emma and Marcus, 2009, the year we got everything right." I shouldn't have asked. It wasn't my place. But something about the way he kept that photo hidden made me curious. That night, he found me in the kitchen making tea at midnight. I still couldn't sleep properly. "You found the photograph," he said. Not a question. "I'm sorry. I wasn't snooping, Her name was Emma Carrington. We were engaged." He poured himself a glass of whiskey, his movements precise. "She died in a car accident 3 weeks before our wedding. Drunk driver ran a red light." "Marcus, I made my first $1 billion the year after she died. Threw myself into work. Never stopped. You asked why I live the way I do, that's why. Control is the only thing that keeps me from falling apart." He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I hadn't seen before. Loneliness. The kind that comes from building walls so high no one can climb them. "You remind me of her," he said quietly. "Not physically, but the way you fight. The way you do anything to protect the people you love." "Emma would have stolen my credit card too if it meant saving someone's life." That night, something shifted between us. He was still my boss, still demanding and exacting. But there was a new element of trust, of understanding. Things got complicated in month 4. Marcus had a social obligation, a charity gala for Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, of all the bitter ironies. He needed a date for appearances. His regular companion, a socialite named Victoria, was in Europe. He asked me to accompany him. I wanted to refuse. This wasn't part of our arrangement, but the gala was raising money for cancer research, for people like my mother. I agreed. The event was at the Met. I wore a dress that Marcus had bought, Valentino midnight blue, worth more than I'd made in 6 months at my old job. I felt like a fraud wearing it, but when Marcus saw me, something flickered in his expression. "You look beautiful," he said, and it sounded like the words surprised him as much as they surprised me. The gala was overwhelming. Celebrities, billionaires, people who moved through wealth like it was air. Marcus introduced me as his assistant, and I saw the way they looked at me, calculating, dismissive, categorizing me as someone beneath their notice, except one person. Victoria Ashford found us by the bar. She was everything I wasn't, tall, blonde, confident, wearing diamonds that probably cost more than my mother's treatment. She looked at me the way you look at an insect. "Marcus, darling," she said, kissing his cheek. "Who's your little friend?" "Victoria. I thought you were in Paris." "I cut my trip short when I heard you were bringing someone else." She turned to me, smile sharp as glass. "Let me guess. You're the assistant." How quaint. "Elena's been invaluable," Marcus said, his tone cooling. "I'm sure she has." Victoria's eyes raked over me. "Tell me, Elena, how exactly does one become invaluable to Marcus Sinclair? What special skills do you bring to the position?" The implication was clear. Nasty. Designed to humiliate. Before I could respond, Marcus stepped between us. "That's enough, Victoria." "Oh, please. Everyone here knows exactly what she is. A charity case. Another one of your little moral experiments. How long before you get bored and throw her back to whatever gutter you found her in?" The words hit like acid. Because she was right. I was a charity case, an experiment, someone who existed in Marcus's world because he allowed it and could be dismissed the moment he decided the experiment was over. Marcus's face went cold. "Leave, now." "Excuse me?" "You heard me. Leave my sight before I have security escort you out." Victoria laughed, brittle and sharp. "You're actually choosing the help over me. How amusing. We'll see how long this lasts." She walked away, leaving me standing there feeling smaller than I'd ever felt. Marcus turned to me. "I'm sorry, she had no right." "She was right, though," I said quietly. "That's what I am, your experiment, your project. Someone you're testing to see if poor people can be trusted around real money." "Elena, can we leave? I'd like to go home now." We left. The ride back to the penthouse was silent. That night broke something open between us. I went straight to my suite, still wearing the Valentino dress, feeling like I'd been filleted open in public. I'd been fooling myself, thinking I belonged in Marcus's world. I was temporary, replaceable, a moral experiment with an expiration date. There was a knock on my door at 1 a.m. Marcus stood there, still in his tuxedo, tie loosened, holding 2 glasses of whiskey. "I can't sleep," he said. "I don't think you can either." I should have sent him away, should have maintained professional boundaries. But I was lonely and hurt and tired of pretending. I let him in. We sat on the couch in my suite, drinking whiskey, looking out at the city lights. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then Marcus said, "Victoria was wrong about you. You're not a charity case." "You're the most genuine person I've met in 10 years. I'm a thief who works for you because I don't have a choice. You had a choice. You could have run, hidden, tried to fight the charges. You chose to face what you'd done. That takes character." He looked at me. "I've been surrounded by wealth my entire life. I grew up in it. I've built more of it than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. And I've learned that money reveals people. It shows you who they really are. It doesn't corrupt them. It just removes the barriers that keep them pretending. What did it reveal about me? That you're willing to sacrifice yourself to save someone else. That you feel guilt for doing what you needed to survive. That you don't take luxury for granted. He paused. That you're better than most people I know who were born into this world. Why do you really keep me around? I asked. The truth. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, because you make me remember what it's like to care about something other than control. Because when Emma died, I decided it was safer to feel nothing than to risk feeling everything. Because you're the first person in a decade who looks at me like I'm a human being instead of a bank account. The air between us changed, became charged with something dangerous. Marcus, I said carefully, this is a bad idea. I know. You're my employer. There's a massive power imbalance. I'm dependent on you for my mother's life. I know. So we can't. He kissed me. I should have pushed him away, should have maintained boundaries, should have protected myself from the inevitable disaster this would become. I kissed him back. We didn't sleep together that night. We both had enough sense to pull back before we crossed that final line. But something fundamental had shifted. The walls between employer and assistant, between billionaire and former thief, had started to crumble. The next morning, Marcus acted like nothing had happened. Back to business, back to schedules and efficiency and control. But I'd see him watching me sometimes, when he thought I wasn't looking, with an expression I couldn't quite read. My mother's third round of treatment was a complete success. Dr. Patterson called it miraculous. The tumors were gone. My mother was in remission. She was going to live. I should have been ecstatic, and I was. But I was also terrified, because I was falling in love with Marcus Sinclair, and I had no idea what that meant for any possible future. Then, in month 8, everything exploded. I was working late in Marcus's home office, organizing quarterly expense reports, when I noticed something odd. A series of payments to a company called Meridian Holdings. Large payments, $50,000, $75,000, $100,000, going out monthly for the past 3 years. But Meridian Holdings didn't appear in any of Marcus's investment portfolios or business holdings. I shouldn't have investigated. It wasn't my business. But I'd been managing his finances for 8 months. I knew every company he owned, every investment he'd made. This didn't fit the pattern. I did some digging. Meridian Holdings was a shell company. I traced it through 3 layers of corporate structures until I found what it was actually funding. A private care facility in Connecticut. Greenvale Manor. I looked up Greenvale Manor. It was a luxury long-term care facility specializing in traumatic brain injury rehabilitation. I cross-referenced the dates. The payments had started in June 2012, 3 weeks after Emma Carrington's accident. My blood went cold. Emma hadn't died. I confronted Marcus that night, showed him what I'd found, watched his face go absolutely white. "You lied to me," I said. "You told me she died." "To me, she did," he said quietly. "The Emma I knew died that night. What's left is something else." "What do you mean?" He poured himself a drink with shaking hands. "The accident left her with severe brain damage. She's alive, technically. She breathes on her own. Sometimes her eyes open. But she doesn't recognize anyone, doesn't speak, doesn't respond. The doctors say she never will. She's in what they call a minimally conscious state. Not brain dead, but not really alive either." "For 10 years?" "For 10 years. I've kept her in the best facility in the country, paid for every experimental treatment, hired the best neurologists, kept hoping for a miracle." His voice cracked. "But there's been no change, no improvement, no hope." "Why didn't you tell me?" Because saying she died is easier than explaining the truth. Because telling people she's in a vegetative state leads to questions about why I don't just pull the plug. Because it's easier to be a tragic widower than a man who's been unable to let go of someone who's already gone. I sat down, my legs suddenly weak. Marcus, you want to know the real reason I hired you? He looked at me with something desperate in his eyes. Because I needed to know if I was capable of feeling something for another human being. If there was anything left inside me besides grief and guilt and control. You were supposed to be an experiment, a test. Instead, you became the first real thing in my life in a decade. I don't know what to do with that, I whispered. Neither do I. The next 2 weeks were agony. Marcus and I orbited each other carefully, both of us aware that we'd stumbled onto emotional landmines with no map to navigate them. Then Dr. Patterson called with news about my mother. The cancer was back, aggressive, metastasized. The immunotherapy had bought us time, but not a cure. How long? I asked, the question that haunted me. 6 months, maybe 8. I'm sorry, Elena. I told Marcus that night. He held me while I cried, and I felt him shaking too, and I realized he was crying with me, for my mother, for Emma, for all the people we loved and couldn't save, no matter how much money we threw at the problem. I need to quit, I told him. I need to spend whatever time she has left with her. I know. The contract. Fuck the contract. Your mother is dying. Nothing else matters. But then he said something that changed everything again. Come with me tomorrow. There's something I need to do, and I need you there. The next day, he took me to Greenvale Manor. Emma Carrington was in a private room filled with sunlight and flowers. She was beautiful even now, dark hair, delicate features, connected to monitors and feeding tubes. Her eyes were open but empty, staring at nothing. Marcus sat beside her bed and took her hand. I stood in the doorway, feeling like an intruder. Emma, he said softly, I need to tell you something. I met someone. Her name is Elena. She's smart and brave, and she reminds me of you. And I think I'm falling in love with her. I think I need to let you go. Silence. The beep of monitors. The hiss of oxygen. I've been holding on to you for 10 years, hoping you'd come back. But you're not coming back, are you? And I'm not really living. I'm just existing. Controlling everything because I'm terrified of losing control again. He looked up at me, tears streaming down his face. Elena's mother is dying. Really dying. And watching her face that with courage, while I can't even face this. It's shown me what a coward I've been. He turned back to Emma. I'm going to let you go. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. I'm going to stop the treatments. I'm going to let nature take its course. And I'm going to try to live again. Really live. You'd want that for me. I know you would. He kissed her forehead. Stood. Took my hand. We walked out of Greenvale Manor together. Which brings me to now. To this moment. Standing in the lobby of the Sinclair Tower, holding the Centurion card that started everything, waiting for the elevator that will take me to face Marcus one final time. Because 3 days after our visit to Greenvale Manor, Marcus's attorney contacted me. There was a problem with the fraud case. Apparently, Victoria Ashford had gotten hold of information about my theft. She was threatening to go public with it, to destroy Marcus's reputation by association, to leak documents about the whole arrangement, unless I disappeared, left Marcus's life, signed an NDA and walked away. The elevator dings. I step in, press 47. Marcus is waiting when the doors open. Behind him, Victoria stands with her arms crossed, smirking triumphantly. Elena, Marcus says, you didn't have to come. Yes, I did. I hold up the card. This belongs to you. I walk past Victoria without looking at her. Stand in front of Marcus. Place the card in his hand. I'm giving this back to you, all of it. The job, the money, the penthouse, everything. And I'm turning myself in for fraud. Elena, no. Yes, because you were right. You gave me a second chance to prove I could be trusted, and I can be. I won't let you be destroyed because of me. I won't let Victoria or anyone else use my mistakes as a weapon against you. You'll go to prison, Marcus says. Maybe, probably, but I'll do it with integrity intact. I look at Victoria. You want to destroy us? Go ahead. Release whatever documents you have. Tell whatever stories you want. You'll get your scandal, but you won't get the satisfaction of watching us compromise who we are to avoid it. Victoria's smile falters. Marcus steps forward, takes my hands. I'm not letting you do this. You don't have a choice. Yes, I do. He turns to Victoria. You want documents? I'll give you documents. Elena never stole from me. I hired her before she found the card. She contacted me immediately when she discovered it. Every payment for her mother's treatment was legitimate employment compensation. I have contracts dated 2 weeks before the Oriole incident to prove it. You're lying, Victoria says. Try me. Sue me. Investigate me. You'll find that every document, every contract, every transaction is perfectly legitimate and legally bulletproof. Because I've spent the last month ensuring that's exactly what the paper trail shows. He's lying. Masterfully. Creating a false narrative supported by backdated documents. Committing fraud to cover my fraud. It's illegal. It's wrong. It's also the most romantic thing anyone has ever done for me. You'd perjure yourself for her? Victoria asks, disbelieving. I do worse than that. Victoria stares at us for a long moment. Then she laughs bitterly. You actually love her. You actually love this nobody who stole from you. Yes, Marcus says simply. I do. Victoria leaves. The threat dissolves. The danger passes. Marcus and I stand there in his office holding hands, having just lied our way out of disaster together. You shouldn't have done that, I tell him. Neither should you. We're terrible people. Probably. He pulls me closer. But we're terrible people together. That counts for something. My mother died on a Tuesday in March. Peacefully, surrounded by family. Thanks to Marcus's continued support, she spent her last months in comfort, without pain, with dignity. Marcus was with me at the funeral, held me while I cried, stayed through the grief. 3 weeks later, Emma Carrington passed away quietly at Greenvale Manor. Marcus had stopped the aggressive treatments, let her go gently. He cried at her funeral too, and I held him, and we mourned together for all the people we couldn't save and all the time we'd lost. We gave ourselves space after that. Time to grieve separately. Time to figure out who we were without all the drama and contracts and desperate circumstances forcing us together. Marcus sold Sinclair Capital Management, took a step back from the endless pursuit of more wealth, more control, more everything. Started a foundation dedicated to cancer research and traumatic brain injury treatment. Named it after Emma and my mother both. I went back to school. Used the money Marcus had paid me, legitimately, the new documentation confirmed, to get my MBA. Started thinking about what I wanted to do with my life beyond just surviving. 6 months after all the chaos settled, Marcus called me. I'd like to take you to dinner, he said. No employment contract, no power imbalance, no desperate circumstances. Just two people who've seen each other at their worst and somehow still want to see each other at their best. That sounds terrifying, I told him. I know. What if we're only compatible in crisis? Then we'll find out. But Elena, I'd rather find out and fail than never try at all. I'm writing this now from Marcus's penthouse. Our penthouse. We've been together for 2 years, engaged for 6 months, planning a small wedding. Nothing like what he and Emma had planned. Something quieter. More us. The Centurion card sits in a frame in our bedroom. A reminder of where we started. A symbol of the worst and best decisions we ever made. People ask me sometimes what it's like to be with someone that wealthy. To have gone from stealing his credit card to sharing his life. They expect a fairy tale answer. The truth is messier. We fight. We have different perspectives shaped by different lives. I still have nightmares about prison. He still struggles with control. We're both in therapy. We're both works in progress. But I've learned something important. Wealth doesn't make you good or bad. It just amplifies who you already are. Marcus was always someone capable of extraordinary generosity and equally extraordinary isolation. The money just gave him more tools to express both. And me? I was always someone who would do whatever it took to protect the people I love. The desperation just revealed that truth in the most dramatic way possible. The Black Centurion card changed my life, but not because of its spending limit, because it put me in the path of someone who saw past the theft to the desperation behind it, who gave me a second chance when I didn't deserve one, who taught me that redemption is possible, even after you've crossed lines you swore you never would. My mother used to say that character is what you do when no one's watching. I used to believe that. Now I think character is what you do when everyone's watching and you still choose to do the right thing, even when it costs you everything. Marcus and I both failed that test once, spectacularly. But we're still here, still trying, still learning how to be people worthy of second chances. The card in the frame reminds me every day. We are not defined by our worst moments. We're defined by what we do after them, and that's worth more than any credit limit in the world.